Good afternoon everyone, welcome to the National Marine Aquarium. My name is Freya and today we are feeding our Eddystone Reef tank. Now this tank here is 500,000 litres, so it's our third largest exhibit here, and if you've visited the aquarium before, it's that really big tank with all the shells in front of it. Now we're going to feed two main animals in this tank today, our wreckfish and our smooth hands. And then we're going to go down to the front of the area and we're going to see the bottom feed going on as well. So we've got Heather here. Heather is our lead biologist. So she's going to be feeding. Give us a wave, Heather. She is going to be feeding the animals. She's going to be feeding the animals in this tank. She's going to start with the wreckfish. Now the wreckfish are targeted. Heather, can you just hold up the target? So the wreckfish know that this target is their target for food, so they will swim up once they see that target really low into the water, and then Heather's going to be monitoring how much they're eating for the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. So hopefully we'll see that soon, which will be really cool. We've got 4 wreckfish in this tank, so if you can think of any really cool names for the wreckfish, they currently haven't got any names, so any famous 4 duos, maybe a band or something like that you can name them after, that would be really good. We did also want to say thank you so much for everyone that's donated so far. Your support is so important to us. Even if you aren't able to donate, just liking our page and sharing the videos that we're putting out is really helpful to us as well. So thank you so much for all of the support during this difficult period. But now you guys can sit back and relax and watch the amazing feeding that's going to go on. So we'll just lower the target in. And Heather is going to start feeding the creatures. Now the wreckfish have been trained to follow this target. So when we first got them in the aquarium, when they were really small, they came into our aquarium, they were put into quarantine for a bit, and they were trained to follow these targets. And then as they've grown up and they've been moved into this tank, we have put them into this one, so they still follow the target here. They're really smart and they've worked out where these targets are and where they need to get their food from. Now we do this every single day with these animals, and the reason we've target trained the wreckfish is because they can actually grow to be about 1 metre long each. When just coming over to say hello and get some food. Now these guys are all found in British waters. The wreckfish is more commonly found though in Mediterranean, so a bit further south from us here in Plymouth. But as the climate's changing and the water is getting warmer, they're coming up a bit further north, up to us here in Plymouth. They're being found more commonly. These guys are about 1 metre long when they're fully grown, when they're adults. So we don't want them to start bothering our divers when they go in to feed the animals. They feed the animals 3 times a week in this tank via dives. And we don't really want them to pester the divers, so we've trained them to feed at 1 o'clock instead, rather than when the divers go in a bit later on. We've got a question, how long does it take to target train them? That's a really good question. Heather is actually our conditioning expert here at the aquarium, and for things like our sharks and our turtle, it takes around about a month for them to kind of get the hang of the target, but we train them constantly, they're always being trained. This training is reinforced every single time they get something to eat. It's like a reward for coming up to swimming up to the target, which is really good. Now this tank is our Eddystone Reef tank. This tank is the 3rd largest tank we've got here in the aquarium, and it houses animals that we find here in Plymouth and in the UK. Now all of the animals here would live in the really cold waters of our shores. This tank is about 13-14 degrees. Which is super chilly. It's so cold, it's about the same temperature as if you were to just run your bath on cold. So it's not the most pleasant tank to be in for our divers when they do go in, but our fish love it. It's based off an area just off the coast of Plymouth called Eddystone, which is a big lighthouse that sometimes on a really clear day you can see from the aquarium. Oh, so today, what are they being fed? Great question. Today they are being fed prawns. They've got a bit of mackerel and a bit of squid. We try to give them a nice bit of, we like to give them a nice bit of variety to make sure that they're getting enough to eat and lots of different types of food. Imagine if you guys were just to eat the same type of food every single day, it'd get a little bit boring. So give them lots of different things to eat. Do keep your questions coming in. If you guys have got any questions that you want to ask, then please do. And names for our wreckfish as well. We've got 4 wreckfish in this tank. You can see 3 of them just here by Heather's target. And we want to give them all some really, really good names. So if you can think of any cool groups of 4 that have names, that would be really, really good. We've had the wreckfish in this tank for about a year. They came to the aquarium when they were really, really small, so they weren't on display for the first part of their life here at the aquarium. And then when they grew bigger, we put them into our Eddystone Reef tank, which is what Heather's just feeding now. So they're just being targeted here. So in order to get their food, they have to swim right up to the target and then get their food from there. They can't just swim next to it or near it. They have to swim right up and touch the target with their nose. So the biggest fish in this tank, Lisa, we'll hopefully get to see a little bit later when we go down to the front of the tank. It's actually our conger eel. Now our conger eel, we have 2 in this tank, and they are about 6 foot long, which is pretty big, but they can grow to be about 2 meters, depending on the age they get to and things like that. So that's really, really cool. Some great names that are coming in. So in a minute as well, Heather is going to start target feeding some of the sharks that we've got in this tank. Now we have 2 species of shark in this tank at the moment. We have got our common smoothhounds and our starry smoothhounds, and they're both going to get fed from the same target. You might see them swimming up towards the target for the wreckfish at the moment, because they're very, very greedy and they like to try and steal food from anyone they can. But we have to train them on their specific target as well. There you go. This is Hercules. It's the smallest of our common smoothhounds.
They're a bit of a rest. Let the food go down.
So we've just had a question on who gets to name our animals. So sometimes we let you guys name our animals, members of the public. So if you guys can think of any good names for our 4 wreckfish, we've got one just swimming over now to the target. We're looking for 4 names for these guys. So please do give your suggestions, keep them coming in. But in terms of the other animals around the aquarium, sometimes the biologists will name them based on the place that they would live in the wild. So we've got some animals that are called like things like kits and nevis, and they're islands in the Caribbean. We've got some animals that are named really cute names, like Howie, our sand tiger shark. And then sometimes the animals choose the names themselves. So our octopus will crack open little egg cases that have names in there, and they get to choose their own names. So do have a look for those videos. I'm sure we'll be putting more videos up like that in the future as well.
Playing with us now.
So this tank is the coldest of our 3 largest exhibits. This one's about 13 degrees, so the same temperature as the sea outside in Plymouth Sound. But we've also got our ocean tank, which has got all the big sharks in it, which we fed a few weeks ago, so you can look at that video as well. And then we've also got our Great Barrier Reef tank, which was fed a few weeks ago as well. So do have a look back through our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. And there are more videos on there that you can watch throughout this time that we're unfortunately closed. You can still see all of our lovely animals. So this tank here gets fed in 4 different ways. The first way is our target feeding, which is what Heather is doing now with our wreckfish, and she'll be doing it with our smoothhounds in just a bit. The kind of other way that we feed it is by throwing the food into the top for things like our mullet. So we've got some thick-lipped grey mullet that hop around the target feed for things like our pollock and our bream. They'll get fed through a scatter feed. And then sometimes our divers do actually go into the tank as well, and they'll hand feed the animals. and they'll give them lots and lots of food and make sure that everyone is getting the right amount to eat as well. Now our divers do generally focus on the animals that live at the bottom of the tank rather than things like our wreckfish and our smooth hounds, because we want to make sure that they're getting fed correctly from their targets. And then the last way that we feed them is through our bottom feeder. Now that literally squirts all of the food out of the bottom of the tank, just like a confetti cannon. So we'll see that a bit later on. We'll go around to the front of the tank and see Heather do that, because it's a very, very fun thing to see. Some of our wreckfish is coming over to get something to eat. We're getting some great name suggestions, guys. We've had some about the Beatles, the Four Musketeers, some brilliant names. Keep your names coming in, because we do want to give these wreckfish some names, because it makes it a bit easier for us to ID them individually. Oh, yeah, so we'll let you know after the video which one we think is the best one. We'll pick at the end of the video. Yeah. And we'll give them some really good names. But there's some brilliant suggestions coming in. Well, we've had one question, which is your favourite in the aquarium. My favourite animal that we have here in the National Marine Aquarium is actually our octopus. Now we have 3 different types of octopus, but my all-time favourite one is the giant Pacific octopus. What are your guys' favourites? Maybe you can tell me your favourite animals. Now in this tank as well, if you guys, or are you changing over targets now? Brilliant. So Heather is going to change over now, and she is going to be feeding our smooth hounds. Now with our smooth hounds, they are sharks. You can see on their target, they have kind of been chewing the end. They tend to bite the target quite a lot. Now this will be lowered into the water. This will be lowered into the water for them in just a second. But before Heather does that, she's going to rub these 2 screws together. Now what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the sharks to work out when the feeding is actually starting, and then we'll rub it together again at the end of their food. So we want to make sure that they're not coming over and bothering the wreckfish too much, because they do tend to cover the wreckfish target up and then they can't see their target. So the smooth hounds will be coming over in just a second. They have been hovering around a bit earlier, so we'll have a little look and see if they come over. But we actually have 5 sharks in this tank of 2 different species. So we have got our starry smooth hounds, which are Stella and Draco. So this is Stella. She's got 2 white bits on the tips of her fins. She's a very greedy shark, this one. She's been eating a lot this week. And we've got Draco, who's a boy and is a starry smooth hound. And then we've got 3 common smooth hounds, which are Ursa, Hydra and Hercules. So I'll try and point them out as they're coming over. The handy thing is with those sharks is they've all got their own little markings, which makes it a lot easier to identify them. So it means we can mark down who's had what to eat. And these guys are actually named after constellations because they're starry smooth hounds. So sometimes we name them after nice things like that. Now, every time these guys have come up and fed, Heather will actually note down who's had what to eat. And this is the way that we can monitor what they're eating, how much they're eating, because we need to make sure that everyone is getting the right amount to eat. Now, sometimes with our female sharks, I'm loving the Star Wars ones, that's a good reference, love that. And the directions, north, east, south and west, I like that too. Now, sometimes with our female sharks, in starry smooth hounds, they will actually lay their eggs inside of them. So if they're pregnant, the best way for us to know that is by how much they're eating. So we want to make sure that if they're eating loads and they're pregnant, we want to be able to get them out of the tank when they're getting towards the end of their pregnancy, so that they don't have their babies inside this massive tank where the other animals could potentially eat them. Now, some sharks in the UK and around the world will actually lay eggs instead, a bit like a chicken does. So I'll just show you here. Here we go. So these are from cat sharks, these ones. And you can actually see that they've got this yolk bit inside it, just like a chicken egg would. And then they've got this bit here. This is kind of like the shell, and it protects the babies whilst they're inside there growing. Now cat sharks will stay inside their eggs between 6 and 9 months, and they'll grow up inside of here and bend over. These kind of tendrily bits are what they use to loop them around seaweed and coral in the ocean to protect them from drifting away. So these are really cool. Sometimes they actually have babies inside them when they're pulled out of the tank. Our divers will collect them. And if they've got babies inside them, then we let them grow on in the aquarium. And sometimes you can see them in our little nursery tank dancing away inside their egg. Oh, the shipwrecks one in Plymouth Sound is a good name. That's a good suggestion. Yeah, shipwrecks are cool because they are called wreckfish, which is very, very cool.
Normally these guys are fed a little bit further over to the right, where there's a little bit of rock behind the target, so they tend to get a little bit confused when they've got a gap behind it. So I make life difficult.
So this is our Eddystone Reef exhibit. It's actually named after the area of ocean that's not too far from here. If you were to swim about 13 miles, Stella's very greedy. If you were to swim about 13 miles away from us here in the aquarium, you'll reach a place called the Eddystone Lighthouse that's directly above the Eddystone Reef. So we've named it after that because you can actually see the lighthouse from the aquarium on a nice sunny day. You're able to spot it. Now what is really cool is Smeaton's Tower, the big red and white lighthouse that's up in the Hove, actually used to be 13 miles away from us here at the aquarium. It used to be stood out at sea, but it wasn't stable enough, so they brought it back onto shore, and they built a much sturdier one a few years ago. Have they all come up today, Heather?
We have had Stella and Hercules.
Stella and Hercules. So I just wanted to say thank you again for everyone that's been able to donate so far. Your support is really, really appreciated. It really helps us to care for our animals and make sure that they're all kept nice and safe. If you guys aren't able to donate at the moment, please don't worry. Just sharing the stuff that we're doing on Facebook, giving us a like on all our social media channels is also a really, really great help as well. We've just had a question, how deep is this tank? This tank is about, Heather, how deep is this tank?
About 5.5 meters.
About 5.5 meters, and it holds about 500,000 litres. Now what is quite cool about this tank is it also has the single largest viewing window of any tank in the UK. This tank is in a room called our Eddystone Reef exhibit. Now this room is typically like a main feature area of the aquarium, so we do all sorts of different things in this room. So you might have seen that people have wedding proposals in this tank. We do our sleepovers in this room. So when the aquarium opens again, we'd love to see you joining in with some of those fun extra things that we do around the aquarium. So please do join us for those as well, because they are really, really fun. So in this tank, a lot of the fish that we've got in here are actually quite colourful as well. Now from here you might be able to spot there's some orange fish in here, but particularly these pink fish. These are called Cuckoo Wrasse, and they're a seafood that we get here in the UK. They're very good at stealing the food from the sharks. But a lot of the fish that we've got in here are fish that you might have actually eaten before. So we've got things like our mullet, we've got pollock in here, sea bass, breams, all sorts of wonderful fish that we get here in the UK. And something you can actually do right now that's going to help animals here in the UK in terms of fishing stuff is if you're thinking about the way that food has been caught. So something you can look out for is the Marine Stewardship Council logo on any seafood you're buying. It's a bright blue tick. and it's really, really clear to see. And if you see that, it means that fish has been caught in a sustainable way, it's come from a sustainable place, or is a sustainable type of fish. So have a look for those. Whilst you're out and about doing your food shopping, you're getting things like fish fingers. It's a really, really good thing to look out for. What is really cool is things like supermarket-owned fish fingers. Actually, most of them are sustainable. They're made using pollock, which is a much more sustainable fish than cod. You'll see Stella's coming over again. Stella is very greedy. She is the biggest starry smoothhound we've got, so she does need lots of food. She's coming over to say hi. Now, in our sharks, we actually have about 40 species of shark that live here in the UK. We get just over 20 that live here in the UK permanently, but we get some of the biggest sharks in the world come here whilst they're finding food. So things like basking sharks actually visit us here in the UK in the summer months. They'll come and feed off our coast because we have lots and lots of plankton, which is what they love to eat. We do also get things called Mako Sharks. A short fin Mako shark is actually the fastest shark in the world. They can swim at bursts of over 30 miles an hour, which is incredibly quick for a shark. But in this tank here, we have got our smoothhounds and our starry smoothhounds. So we've had a question, can all fish be trained? Yes, all fish can be trained. You can train pretty much anything. The way we're training them is we reward them with food. So if they need something to eat, they'll come up to the top of the target, they'll touch the target with their nose, and then they get rewarded with food. So it's a bit like if you've got a cat or a dog at home and you're training them to do something, you would train them using treats. We do the same with our animals, but with food. Now, the reason we do this isn't for fun. We don't do it just to make them come up and perform tricks. It's actually for their own benefit, because we need to make sure they're eating enough, particularly in a big tank just like this. If we're scattering the food in, we don't know who's going to get enough to eat. There we go. So Heather has now finished her 10-minute slot for these sharks. She's going to put the screws back into the water and just run them away from each other, just to make a noise to signal to the sharks that she's all done with feed. Did everyone come up?
They did not. I think this is one of them. But
Oh, okay.
the feed one of them wasn't free, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we don't miss out.
Sorry, bag.
Let you go first.
So we're going to go downstairs to the front area of our Eddystone tent. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. Bye.
We're going to head downstairs to the front of the tank to see the last bit of the feed that we're going to do today. Now, the last bit of the feed that we're doing is our bottom feed. Now, the bottom feed is essentially like a big pump. You put all the food in at the top, turn the pump on, and it shoots all of the food out at the bottom of the tank, a bit like a confetti cannon. If you see any animals that you want to ask more questions about whilst we're at the front, please do ask, because you should hopefully be able to see them a little bit better from the front of the tank as well. So just head this way. There you go. But whilst we're at the front of the tank, what I want you to see is I want you to try and spot the most colourful fish that you guys can see in that tank. So you've got lots of different fish in that tank. They're all UK species. I want you to spot the most colourful one that you can see in that tank, okay? So we're just around the corner. Once you've seen that most colourful fish, tell me what colours it is, and I'll see if I can point it out to you on the camera. So here we are at the front of our Eddystone Reef tank. Have a little look, guys, see what you can spot. So the bottom feed is going to come right out in front of your faces, and it'll feed all of these animals at the bottom, things like our rays and our crabs. So we're just going to see if Heather's at the top and is ready to do the bottom feed. So just bear with me a second. Heather.
Lovely. I'm just loading it up. Won't be a couple of minutes.
Thank you. So here we can see some of our sharks from the front. So these are our common smoothhounds. This is Ursa and Hydra. And you can see the wreckfish here as well. Here's one just over here. So this is what we're trying to name. These guys will actually grow to be about 1 metre long each. They've got very, very grumpy looking faces. See if we can find some of our biggest residents in the tank. The biggest animal that we've actually got in this exhibit is our conger eel, who lives just over here. This is Clive. Now conger eels actually sleep for about 23 hours a day. So Clive is fast asleep right now, dreaming about fish. But he does sleep upside down. So something we commonly get asked in the aquarium when we're open is people worried about Clive because he sleeps upside down. It's his favourite spot to sleep in. But if you guys were sleeping for 23 hours, you'd want to sleep in a comfy spot too. So his comfy spot is in a cave upside down on his back. But when he's wide awake, he's more alert, he's sticking his head out a bit more. So some of you guys have mentioned some of the colourful fish that you've been able to see. So just here we've got this blue and orange one and this more pinky coloured one. There's quite a few of these little pinky coloured ones actually. These are both the same type of fish. These are called Cuckoo Wrasse and they're found here in the UK. They're probably some of the more colourful fish that we have here in the UK. The blue one here is a male and the female are these pinky coloured ones with the black and white spots on their back. We've just got a male here, here's a female. Now what is really cool is when these guys are born, they're all born as female, and then when they get to around the age of about 7, if there's no male in the area, and they're the biggest and strongest female, they'll actually change from being a girl to a boy. So this blue one here was once upon a time a girl, and they change colour in the male Cuckoo Wrasse, so they go from being this pinky colour to this really, really vibrant blue and orange. So these are probably some of the most colourful fish that we get here in the UK. So I want to say happy birthday to Corbin. We will definitely see if we can name one of the wreckfish Corbin. But we've had lots of really good suggestions as well, so we'll definitely choose by the end of this video and maybe make an announcement on our Facebook page about what our wreckfish are going to be called after all your wonderful suggestions. If you've just joined us, welcome. We're just naming our wreckfish. So these grumpy looking animals, we've got 4 of them here in this tank, but unfortunately they haven't got any names. So we do want to give them a really, really good name. Maybe you can think of a good 4 group that can come up with some good names. Gavin and Stacey, a perfect suggestion. I love that one. Some of our rays are swimming around. So these guys are skates. We don't actually have any stingrays in this tank. We have skates. Skates are different to stingrays and rays because they don't have stings on the end of their tail. So instead they've got these little spines and they've got these little discs instead. They've also got these modified fins under their bodies that help them to skate along the sea floor that you can see these guys doing just now. Oh, shock. This one is Hydra. Hydra is the biggest of all the common smoothhounds we've got here. So we're just waiting for Heather. Heather is going to be doing the bottom feed. So she's going to be pouring all the food into the top of the feeder now. And then she'll turn it on and it will squirt out all of the food at the bottom. Happy birthday to Perry. We've got Jago. Oh, and Brody, happy birthday for tomorrow. Oh, here we go. This is the bottom feeder. So you can see it shoots it all about, a bit like a confetti cannon, and all of the animals descend. So you can see just how many animals we've actually got in this tank. So the bottom feeder, the idea is it's going to feed things like our rays and our skates and things like our flatfish. We've got some turbot in here. There's a really big one at the back that's really well camouflaged. You might be able to spot it, but he's got lots of fish on him at the moment. We've got things like our pollock. This is a gilt-head bream, this one. So lots of these people would recognise the names of maybe, but might not have seen them in real life because they might have just eaten them instead. you guys have got any questions about the animals that you can see in our Eddystone exhibit, which is what we're just in front of now, then please do ask, or keep your name suggestions coming in as well. So we've got lots of suggestions that have come in for our names of our animals, so thank you so much for those suggestions. What we're going to do is we're going to choose the best 4 suggestions, and then we're going to put a picture up with the 4 suggestions that you guys are going to be able to vote on, and we'll leave that vote up for a couple of days, and it will give you a good opportunity to choose some names for our new wreck fish that are here in this tank. At the moment they're just doing the scatter feed, so they're giving some more food to these bigger animals here at the top, giving them something to eat. And this is where we're just literally chucking in bits of prawn today and bits of mussel. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today for our live video. We'll be back again next week with another live feed in another special location that we'll announce on Monday. Thank you so much to you that have been able to donate. If you do want to donate, there's a link just below this video. Please do, if you can, help us out, but if you don't feel that you have to, just liking our videos and sharing them on your social media is also amazing, so thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys, keep safe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.